My name is Claire Ashworth. I'm 34 years old. 11 months ago, I stood at the back of a chapel on the morning of my wedding, looking at my reflection in a mirror I'd never forget. My dress was ivory lace, fitted at the waist, cathedral length. I'd saved for it for 2 years. I'd driven 3 hours to try it on 17 times. My sister Danielle walked in wearing white. Not cream, not champagne, white. A white off-shoulder gown with a sweetheart neckline and a small train. In a room full of 40 wedding guests who were already seated, she walked in wearing white to my wedding. I stood there unable to breathe. My mother glanced over, smoothed her own skirt, and said, "It's just a dress, Claire, don't be dramatic. This is a big day for the whole family." A big day for the whole family. But what Danielle didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that 6 months before this moment, I had written a letter. I had sealed it. I had handed it to my officiant and told her, "When the time comes, you'll know exactly when to read it." That letter changed everything. Before I tell you what happened in that chapel, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. What time is it where you are? I love connecting with all of you. Now let me take you back to where this really started. Growing up in our house in Raleigh, North Carolina, the rule was simple. Whatever Danielle wanted, Danielle got. My parents, Dad, a regional sales director, and Mom, who ran the household like it was her personal production, had one priority, and it was never me. Danielle was 3 years younger, louder, flashier, the one who cried on cue and laughed at the right moments. She was their masterpiece. I was their footnote. I learned early to shrink myself to fit whatever space was left over. When I was 12, I got the highest score in my grade on a state writing competition. My essay was published in the school district newsletter. I came home with the certificate and Mom nodded and said, "That's nice, hun." That same week, Danielle won second place at a local junior dance recital. Dad rented out a table at Benihana. The whole family celebrated. I sat at that table and told myself my competition was just a smaller thing. That it made sense. At 17, I got into the advanced honors program at school and was invited to spend a summer semester studying journalism at UNC. It cost $1,200. I asked my parents if they could help. They said they were short that month. 2 weeks later, they spent $3,400 sending Danielle to a private cheerleading camp in Orlando, complete with matching warm-up sets, new sneakers, and a personalized bag with her name embroidered on it. I got a part-time job at a sandwich shop and paid for the program myself. I told myself they just believed in earning your own way, that it was actually a gift teaching me independence. I believed that for years. The worst one was at 22. I'd been working at a local magazine for 8 months, building a portfolio, when I was offered a real opportunity, a 1-year editorial fellowship in Chicago. Fully funded. It would have launched my career. But I needed someone to take over my half of our shared family phone plan and a co-signer for my Chicago apartment lease since I was just starting out. Small things. Things families do for each other. Dad said he'd think about it. What he actually did was call me 3 days later and tell me he and Mom had decided to put a new deck on the back of the house. Cost? $22,000. They'd found a contractor they liked and had already put down the deposit. The fellowship had a deadline. I missed it. "You'll find another opportunity," Dad said. "And honestly, Chicago is so far. Danielle needs you here." Danielle needed me there. I stayed. I worked. I built my career more slowly, through sheer stubbornness and years of freelancing. And I told myself over and over, that's just how it is in some families. That's just how it is. But I was running out of ways to believe that. 4 years ago, I met Marcus. He was warm and patient, and the first person in my life who looked at me and didn't immediately look past me. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and I started planning the wedding I had always imagined. Simple, elegant, meaningful. A chapel 40 minutes outside of Raleigh, wildflowers, close family and friends. The day I got engaged, Danielle called me. "Oh my God, congratulations! I want to be your maid of honor, obviously." I hadn't asked her yet. I hadn't even told her I was thinking about it. I took a breath. I said yes. Because she was my sister. Because Mom would have made my life unbearable if I hadn't. Because that's what I always did. I smoothed things over before they had the chance to get rough. For the next 18 months, I planned a wedding while managing Danielle. She pushed to change the color palette 3 times. She argued with my florist in front of me about the centerpiece height. She made a comment at my bridal shower, in front of 12 women, that my dress was safe. She was 45 minutes late to the rehearsal dinner because she'd stopped to get her nails redone and decided she didn't like the first set. Every time I said something to my mother, the response was the same. "She's just excited for you, Claire. She loves you." I started keeping a journal. I wrote down every incident, every last-minute demand, every dismissive comment, every moment I swallowed something I should have said. I wrote it all down. Then, 6 months before the wedding, I sat at my kitchen table on a Tuesday night, and I wrote a letter. I addressed it to the guests who would be sitting in that chapel. To Danielle, to my mother, to my father, who had never once stood up for me in 34 years. I wrote down everything I had never been allowed to say out loud. Then I sealed the envelope. I called my officiant, a woman named Patricia who I'd met through a mutual friend. Patricia was no nonsense and had seen every variety of wedding day chaos over her 15 years. I explained what the letter was. I told her what to watch for. "If Danielle shows up to this wedding doing something that crosses a line," I said, "you'll know it when you see it. And when it happens, you read the letter, out loud, to everyone." Patricia held the envelope. She looked at me levelly. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." I didn't tell Marcus the specifics. I told him I had a plan and he trusted me, because that is the kind of man he is. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I did something else. I quietly called my grandmother, my father's mother, Grandma Edith, who lived in a small house in Greensboro and who had watched our family dynamics from a careful distance for decades. She was 78, sharp as ever, and she had always seen me in a way my parents never had. "I know what they do to you," she'd said to me once when I was 19 and visiting her alone. "I've seen it your whole life. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it out loud." I called her and told her I needed her at my wedding. Front row. I told her she was the most important person in that room as far as I was concerned. She said, "I'll be there, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss it for anything." I also arranged for my best friend Maya, who had known my family for a decade, to sit directly behind Grandma Edith. Maya had witnessed more Danielle incidents than I could count. She knew the history. She knew the score. The morning of my wedding, my hair was pinned, my dress was on, my bouquet was in my hands. And Danielle walked in wearing white. Not an accident. Her dress had a small train. Her hair was blown out. She was wearing full bridal makeup. She had planned this. I saw it in her face the moment she walked in, the way she glanced around the room to see who had noticed, the small, self-satisfied curve of her lips when 3 people's eyes went wide. My mother looked at Danielle, then at me. "Oh, hers is more of a cream," she said. It was not cream. Something shifted inside me that I can only describe as the last thread snapping. Not in anger. I was past anger by then. It was quieter than that. It was clarity. I caught Patricia's eye across the room. She was already looking at me. I gave her a small nod. She nodded back. The ceremony began 20 minutes later. 82 people filled that little chapel. Grandma Edith in the front row, Maya directly behind her, Marcus's family across the aisle, some of whom were already whispering and looking at Danielle. My aunt on my father's side leaned over to her husband with an expression I recognized: disbelief. Danielle walked down the aisle as maid of honor, looking like a second bride. Marcus squeezed my hand when I reached him. He leaned in. "You okay?" "More than okay," I whispered. "Just wait." Patricia opened the ceremony warmly. She spoke about love and commitment. She led us through our vows, and when Marcus and I exchanged rings, I felt the whole room hold its breath in that particular way a room does when something real is happening. Then, just before the pronouncement, Patricia paused. She said, "Before I conclude this ceremony, I've been asked by the bride to read something. She wrote this 6 months ago, and she asked me to read it if, and only if, a specific moment occurred today. It did occur. This is the letter." The room went completely still. I heard Danielle shift behind me. Patricia opened the envelope. "To everyone gathered here today," she read, her voice calm and even. "If you're hearing this, it means the moment I anticipated has happened. My sister, who is serving as my maid of honor, has found a way, even today, to make herself the center of attention at my wedding. I have planned for this because in 34 years, it has never not happened." Someone in the third row made a small sound. Patricia continued, "I want to tell you a few things about my life that most of you don't know. When I was 17, my parents spent $3,400 sending Danielle to a cheerleading camp while telling me they couldn't contribute $1,200 to an academic program I had earned. When I was 22, I was offered a fully funded fellowship in Chicago, a career-defining opportunity, and instead of a co-signer for an apartment lease, my parents spent $22,000 on a new backyard deck. I stayed. I gave up that opportunity. I built my life slowly and on my own." My father's head had dropped. My mother's face was the color of chalk. "I don't share this to embarrass anyone," Patricia read. "I share it because for 34 years I have been asked, told, and pressured to be small, to accommodate, to stay quiet, to be grateful for whatever was left over. Today, my sister walked into my wedding wearing white. This is not a mistake. This is the pattern. One more time, one more day, one more occasion that is not about her somehow made about her." Danielle's voice came from behind me, sharp and low. "This is insane." "Please," Marcus said without turning around. "Just that one word. Please." She went silent. Patricia kept reading. "Grandma Edith, I see you in the front row, and I want you to know that you are the reason I found the courage to write this letter. You told me once that you were sorry it took you so long to say out loud what you saw. I want to say to everyone here today, it is never too late to say what is true." Grandma Edith was crying quietly. Her hands were folded in her lap. She did not look away from me for a single moment. "I am not writing this letter out of anger," Patricia continued. "I am writing it from the decision I made a long time ago, and that I am making permanently today. I will no longer organize my life around being palatable to people who have never extended me the same courtesy. This wedding is a celebration of the life Marcus and I are choosing together. It is also, quietly, the last day I carry any of this forward." Patricia folded the letter. "That's all she wrote," she said, and there was the faintest trace of something, not quite a smile but close, at the corner of her mouth. The silence that followed lasted 4 full seconds. I counted. Then Grandma Edith started clapping. Maya joined her immediately, then Marcus's sister. Then, one by one, rippling through the pews, the applause spread. Not everyone. My parents sat stone still, my mother's mouth pressed into a thin line. But most of the room. Most of the room stood. Danielle did not clap. She stood at the edge of my vision, very still, her white dress suddenly looking less like a choice and more like evidence. My father turned to look at her. Just once, briefly. I saw something pass across his face that I had never seen there before. Something that looked, for the first time in my life, like it might be shame. Patricia raised her voice over the settling applause. "By the power vested in me, it is my absolute honor to pronounce you husband and wife." Marcus pulled me into him and kissed me, and the room cheered louder than any wedding I have ever attended. At the reception, my aunt on my father's side, his older sister, a woman named Lenora, who had never in my lifetime spoken a word against my parents, found me near the cake table. She put her hands on my face the way older women do when they want you to really hear them. "I have watched what they have done to you for 30 years, she said. "I should have said something a long time ago. I am so sorry I didn't. You deserved better from all of us." Marcus's mother hugged me twice. His college friends were talking about the letter at their table. I could see them leaning together, gesturing, not gossiping, processing, the way people do when they've witnessed something that reorders their understanding of something. Danielle left before dinner was served. She did not say goodbye to me. My mother approached me near the end of the evening. She stood a few feet away, not quite reaching for me, her hands clasped in front of her. "You embarrassed this family," she said. I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I felt genuinely calm. No, I said. I told the truth about this family. Those are different things. She left 20 minutes later. My father didn't speak to me at all that evening. He sat at his table and aged visibly over the course of 5 hours, and I watched him across the room and felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not relief exactly, just a settled recognition that something that had been crooked my entire life had, at last, been named. The next morning, Marcus and I flew to Portugal for our honeymoon. 10 days in Lisbon and the Algarve. We ate fresh seafood and watched the sun come down over the water, and I slept without that particular low-level tension that had lived in my chest for so long, I'd stopped noticing it was there until it was gone. Grandma Edith called me on our third day. "I've been talking to some of the family," she said. "People are asking themselves hard questions. That's good. That's how things change." She paused. "Your grandfather would have been so proud of you, Claire. He always said you were the strongest one. He knew it before any of us said it." He had passed when I was 20. I hadn't known he'd said that. I sat on a balcony in Lisbon with the Atlantic somewhere in front of me, and I held the phone to my ear, and I let myself cry properly for the first time in months. That was 10 months ago. My life now looks like this. Marcus and I have a home. Not a large one, but ours. A small craftsman in a neighborhood with old trees and a farmer's market on Saturdays. I went back to writing. Freelance turned into a staff position at a regional publication I respect, and last month I filed the first story under a column they've given me my own. The column is called The Long Version. It's about the things people carry without being asked. I hear from my parents about once a month. My mother sends careful, surface-level texts. My father called once, 3 months after the wedding, and said in a voice I had never heard from him before that he wanted to talk. We talked for 40 minutes. It was not a reconciliation. It was a beginning of something I don't yet have a name for. I'm not rushing it. Danielle and I have not spoken. I don't know if that will change. I have thought about it a great deal, and what I keep returning to is this. Forgiveness is something I can offer in my own heart, quietly, at whatever pace it needs to move. Reconciliation requires something more. It requires honesty from the other person, and an understanding of what actually happened, and a genuine desire to do things differently. I haven't seen that. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. I've stopped deciding in advance what the answer has to be. What I know is this. I was 34 years old on the morning of my wedding, and I was still managing other people's comfort at the expense of my own. The letter was the first time, in my adult life, that I said what was true without first checking whether it would be acceptable. Without apologizing before I'd even finished speaking. Without making it smaller than it was. It felt like putting something heavy down that I'd been carrying so long, I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body. If you are someone who has spent your life being the quiet one, the capable one, the one who holds everything together and gets the least in return, I want to say something to you directly. You are allowed to stop absorbing other people's behavior. You are allowed to name what has happened. You are allowed to choose, even on the biggest day of your life, to stop making yourself less than you are. You don't need their permission to tell the truth. You just need a sealed envelope and the right moment. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever found a way to finally say something you'd carried for years? What happened when you did? Drop your answer below. Until next time, your story is worth telling. Don't wait for someone to give you permission.